This is the 7th and last day of the July '89 retreat in Springwater. Yesterday, someone drew my attention to the fact that at the very end of the talk, which was concerned with the fear of dying, fear of death, I said something like, being fully alive and clinging to the thought of oneself are inseparable. And this person wondered about that and found it confusing, that there was an error of omission there. If indeed I said that, what I meant to say is being fully alive and dying to the idea of oneself are inseparable. They cannot be full aliveness and at the same time clinging to the idea of me with all of its concomitants. But a moment of dying to this attachment is a moment of fully aliveness, full aliveness. Today we will read selections from Huang and Krishnamurti. These and other selections have been read many, many times on the last day of retreat. I wouldn't continue reading if there weren't comments after every retreat about the helpfulness of these words and the beauty of them. Particularly the Huang Po, the dialogue. Our conditioning of wanting to attain, wanting to achieve, striving for a goal, that conditioning has not changed over 1,000 years, and therefore the questions have not changed. And therefore the words that are said in response to these questions are said over and over again. Can one hear them freshly? Can the listening be new? Not listening from memory, but listening now. The question is, what is the way and how must it be followed? What is the way and how must it be followed? Huang Po What sort of thing do you suppose the way to be that you should wish to follow it? Questioner. What instructions have the masters everywhere given for meditation practice and for the study of the truth? Huang, words used to attract the dull of wit are not to be relied on. Questioner. If those teachings were meant for the dull-witted, I have yet to hear what truth has been taught to those of really high capacity. Huang, if they are really people of high capacity, where could they find people to follow? If they seek from within themselves, they will find nothing tangible. How much less can they find a teaching worthy of their attention elsewhere? Do not look to what is called the truth by preachers, for what sort of truth could that be? Or teaching. The word dharma is used here, which is a word for truth or true teaching. Questioner, if that is so, should we not seek for anything at all? Huang, by conceding this, you would save yourself a lot of mental effort. Questioner, but in this way, everything would be eliminated. There cannot just be anything. There cannot just be nothing. Can one be with that questioner? There cannot just be nothing. Not seeking means there's nothing. Questioner, Huang, who called it nothing? Who was this fellow? But you wanted to seek for something. Questioner, since there is no need to seek, why do you also say that not everything is eliminated? Huang, not to seek is to rest tranquil. Who told you to eliminate anything? Look at the void in front of your eyes. How can you produce it or eliminate it? And void here doesn't mean vacuum. That's how one may interpret this word. And that's why always the fear arises when there's a moment of nothing in the mind. Then fear, anxiety, the moment this nothing is conceptualized, thought about. Void here means no naming, no knowing, no reacting to, no seer, just what's there. How can you create it or eliminate it, he asks. Questioner, do you mean we should not form concepts as human beings normally do? Huang, I have not prevented you. But concepts are related to the senses, and when feelings take place and concepts are formed, wisdom is shut out. Questioner, then should we avoid any feeling in relation to the Dharma, to the teaching, to the truth? Huang, where no feeling arises, who can say that you are right? Questioner, why do you speak as though I was mistaken in all the questions I have asked your reverence? Huang, you are a man who doesn't understand what is said to him. What is all this about being mistaken? Questioner. Up to now, you have refuted everything which has been said. You have done nothing to point out the true teaching to us or the truth to us. Huang Po. In truth, there is no confusion, but you produce confusion by such questions. What sort of true teaching can you go seeking for? Questioner. Since the confusion arises from my questions, what will your reverence's answer be? Huang Po. Observe things as they are and don't pay attention to other people. There are some people just like mad dogs barking at everything that moves, even barking when the wind stirs among the grass and leaves. Let me say that what is read are excerpts, sometimes words or sentences or paragraphs have been omitted. Here he says, it has never been taught that men should seek for learning or form concepts. Studying the way is just a figure of speech. It is a method of arousing people's interest. In fact, the way is not something which can be studied. Study leads to the retention of concepts, and so the way is entirely misunderstood. Moreover, the way is not something specially existing. Truly, it is not located anywhere. The first step is to refrain from knowledge-based concepts. This implies that if you were to follow any empirical method to the utmost limit, on reaching that limit, you would still be unable to locate mind with a capital M here. The way is spiritual truth and was originally without name or title. It was only because people ignorantly sought for it empirically that Buddhas appeared and taught them to eradicate this method of approach. Fearing that no one would understand, they selected the name way. You must not allow this name to lead you into forming a mental concept of a road. One can add to this a road from here to there. Here the questioner says, from all you have said, mind is the Buddha. Huang Po was in the Buddhist tradition, and the word Buddha does not only refer to the historical personage, but is also a Sanskrit word for the awakened truth or awakened mind, the absolute truth. From all you have said, mind is the Buddha. But it is not clear as to what sort of mind is meant by this mind which is the Buddha. Huang Po, how many minds have you got? Questioner, but is the Buddha the ordinary mind or the enlightened mind? Huang Po, where on earth do you keep your ordinary mind and your enlightened mind? Questioner, in the teaching of the three vehicles, it is stated that they are both. Why does your reverence deny it? Huang Po, in the teaching, it is clearly explained that the ordinary and enlightened minds are illusions. You don't understand. All this clinging to the idea of things existing is to mistake vacuity for the truth. How can such conceptions not be illusory? Being illusory, they hide mind from you. If you would only rid yourselves of the concepts of ordinary and enlightened, you would find that there is no other Buddha, than the Buddha in your own mind. You people go on misunderstanding. You hold to concepts such as ordinary and enlightened, directing your thoughts outwards where they gallop about like horses. All this amounts to beclouding your own minds. As soon as thought or sensation arises, you fall into dualism. Beginningless time and the present moment are the same. Beginningless time and the present moment are the same. There is no this and that. To understand this truth is called complete and unexcelled enlightenment. Questioner, upon what doctrine does your reverence base these words? Huang, why seek a doctrine? As soon as you have a doctrine, you fall into dualistic thought. Questioner, just now you said that the beginningless past and the present are the same. What do you mean by that? Huang, it is just because of your seeking that you make a difference between them. If you were to stop seeking, how could there be any difference between them? Questioner, if they are not different, why did you employ separate terms for them? Huang, if you hadn't mentioned ordinary and enlightened, who would have bothered to say such things? Just as those categories have no real existence, so mind is not really mind. And as both mind and those categories are really illusions, where can you hope to find anything? If you would spend all your time walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, learning to halt the concept-forming activities of your own mind. I've got some problem with this word, halt. This is a translation. See them, discover them, without the doer, without the halter, just seeing them. Discovering, understanding. If you would spend all your time walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, and obviously we don't spend all our time like that. Be careful in reading something like this, not to allow perfectionism to arise. With that comes compulsion and maybe obsession with, I have to be attentive. Which is mental activity with heavy impact upon the body. If you would spend all your time learning to halt the concept-forming activities of your own mind, to see them, you could be sure of ultimately attaining the goal. Here it talks about a goal. But can one listen and not get caught up in seeming contradictions? See for that, and therefore one needs to see for oneself. Since your strength is insufficient, you might not be able to do this by a single leap. But after 5 or 10 years, you would surely have made a good beginning and be able to make further progress spontaneously. It is because you're not that sort of a man that you feel obliged to employ your mind studying meditation and studying the way. So it is said that all the Buddhas taught was like pretending yellow leaves are real gold, just to stop the flow of a child's tears. It must by no means be regarded as though it were the ultimate truth, the words spoken or written or said. What is called supreme perfect wisdom implies that there's really nothing whatever to be attained. If you're able to understand this, you will realize that the way of the Buddhas and the way of the devils are equally wide of the mark. The original pure, glistening universe is neither square nor round, big nor small. It is without any such distinctions as long and short. It is beyond attachment and activity, ignorance and enlightenment. You must see clearly that there is really nothing at all. The great chillicosms, numberless as grains of sand, are mere bubbles. All wisdom and all holiness are but streaks of lightning. None of them have the reality of mind. Mind is one. How can it lack a single hair of anything? When we talk of the knowledge I, in quotation marks, may gain, the learning I may achieve, my intuitive understanding, my deliverance from rebirth, and my moral way of living, our successes make these concepts seem pleasant to us, but our failures make them appear deplorable. What is the use of all that? I advise you to remain uniformly quiescent and above all activity. Do not deceive yourselves with conceptual thinking, and do not look anywhere for the truth, for all that is needed is to refrain from allowing concepts to arise. It is obvious that mental concepts and external perceptions are equally misleading, and the way of the Buddhas is as dangerous to you as the way of demons. So full understanding can come to you only through an inexpressible mystery. The approach to it is called the gateway of the stillness beyond activity. If you wish to understand, know that a sudden comprehension comes when the mind is purged of all the clutter of conceptual and discriminatory thought activity. Those who seek the truth by means of intellect and learning only get further and further away from it. Not till your thoughts cease all their branching here and there, not till you abandon all thoughts of seeking for something, will you be on the right road. Questioner, at this very moment, all sorts of erroneous thoughts are constantly flowing through our minds. How can you speak of our having none? Huang, error has no substance. It is entirely the product of your own thinking. If you see that mind is fundamentally without error, whenever thoughts arise, you will be fully convinced that they are responsible for errors. Therefore it is said, when thoughts arise, then do all things arise. When thoughts vanish, then do all things vanish. Though others may talk of the way of the Buddhas as something to be reached by various pious practices and scripture study, you must have nothing to do with such ideas. A perception sudden as blinking, that subject and object are one, will lead to a deeply mysterious, wordless understanding. And by this understanding, you awake to the truth. When you happen upon someone who has no understanding, you must claim to know nothing. He may be delighted by his discovery of some way to enlightenment, yet if you allow yourselves to be persuaded by him, you will experience no delight at all, but suffer both sorrow and disappointment. Even if you do obtain from him some trifling method, it will only be a thought-constructed thing, having nothing to do with Zen. Zen is also a word for truth. Truth is something never lost to you, even in moments of delusion, nor is it gained at the moment of enlightenment. It depends on nothing and is attached to nothing. It is all-pervading, spotless beauty. It is the self-existent and uncreated absolute. Ah, it is a jewel beyond all price. Here are two selections from Krishnamurti's notebook, written in the 60s. These two selections were from, this was a journal he kept for a while, not quite a year. And these two selections were written in India. There is a huge boulder which projects itself from the southern hills. It changes its color from hour to hour. It is red, highly polished marble of deep rose, a dull brick red, a rain-washed, sunburned terracotta, a gray of mossy green, a flower of many hues, and sometimes it seems just a block of rock without any life. It is all of these things. And this morning, just as dawn was making the clouds gray, this rock was afire, a flame among the green bushes. It is moody as a spoiled person, but its moods are never dark, threatening. It has always color, flamboyant or quiet, shouting or smiling, welcoming or withdrawn. It might be one of the gods that is worshipped, but it is still a rock of color and dignity. All these hills seem to have something special to each one of them. None of them is too high. They are hard and in a hard climate. They seem to be sculptured and exploding. They seem to go over the valley, not too large, far away from towns and traffic, green when it rains, and arid. The beauty of the valley is the trees in the green rice fields. Some of the trees are massive, big of trunk and branch, and they are splendid in their shape. Others are waiting expectantly for the rain, stunted but slowly growing. Others are full of leaves and shade. There are not too many of them, but those that survive are really quite beautiful. The earth is red and the trees are green, and the bush is very close to the red earth. They all survive in the rainless, harsh, sunny days of many months. And when it does rain, their rejoicings shatter the quietness of the valley. Every tree and every bush is shouting with life, and the green leaf is quite incredible. The hills too join, and the whole earth becomes the glory that is. There was not a sound in the valley. It was dark, and there wasn't a leaf moving. Dawn would come in an hour or so. Meditation is not self-hypnosis by words or thought, by repetition or image. All imagination of every kind must be put aside, for they lead to delusion. The understanding of facts and not theories, not the pursuits of conclusions and adjustments to them, and the ambitions of visions. All these must be set aside, and meditation is the understanding of these facts, and so going beyond them. Self-knowing is the beginning of meditation. Otherwise, so-called meditation leads to every form of immaturity and silliness. It was early and the valley was asleep. On waking, meditation was the continuation of what had been going on. The body was without a movement. It was not made to be quiet, but it was quiet. There was no thought, but the brain was watchful, without any sensation. Neither feeling nor thought existed. And a timeless movement began. Word is time, indicating space. Word is of the past or the future, but the active present has no word. The dead can be put into words, but the living cannot. Every word used to communicate about the living is the denial of the living. It was a movement that passed through and between the walls of the brain, but the brain had no contact with it. It was incapable of pursuit or of recognition. This movement was something that was not born out of the known. The brain could follow the known as it could recognize it, but here no recognition of any kind was possible. A movement has direction, but this had no direction. It was not static, because it was without direction. It was the essence of all action. All direction is of influence or of reaction. But action which is not the outcome of reaction, push or pull, is total energy. This energy, love, has its own movement. But the word love, the known, is not love. There's only the fact, the freedom from the known. Meditation was the explosion of the fact. Our problems multiply and continue. The continuation of a problem perverts and corrupts the mind. A problem is a conflict, an issue which has not been understood. Such problems become scars, and innocency is destroyed. Every conflict has to be understood and so ended. One of the factors of deterioration is the continued life of a problem. Every problem breeds another problem, and a mind burnt with problems, personal or collective, social or economic, is in a state of deterioration. In the opening of masses of leaves was a pink flower of 3 petals. It was embedded in green, and it too must have been surprised by its own beauty. It grew on a tall bush, struggling to survive among all that greenery. There was a huge tree towering over it, and there were several other bushes all fighting for life. There were many other flowers on this bush, but this one, among the leaves, had no companion. It was all by itself, and so more startling. There was a light breeze among the leaves, but it never got to this flower. It was motionless and alone, and because it was alone, it had a strange beauty, like a single star when the sky is bare. And beyond the green leaves was a black trunk of the palm. It wasn't really black, but it looked like the trunk of an elephant. And as you watched it, the black turned to a flowering pink. The evening sun was upon it, and all the treetops were afire, motionless. The breeze had died down, and patches of the setting sun were upon the leaves. A small bird was sitting on a branch, preening itself. It stopped to look around, and presently flew off into the sun. We were sitting facing the musicians, who were facing the setting sun. There were very few of us, and the little drum was being played with remarkable skill and pleasure. It was really quite extraordinary what those fingers did. The player never looked at his hands. They seemed to have a life of their own, moving with great rapidity and firmness, striking the taut skin with precision. There was never hesitation. What the right hand did, the left hand never knew, for it was beating out a different rhythm, but always in harmony. The player was quite young, grave with sparkling eyes. He had talent and was delighted to be playing to that small, appreciative audience. Then a stringed instrument joined in, and the small drum followed. It was no longer alone. The sun had set, and the few wandering clouds were turning pale rose. At this latitude there is no twilight, and the moon, nearly full, was clear in a cloudless sky. Walking on that road, with the moonlight on the water and the croaking of many frogs, became a blessing. It is strange how far away the world is, and into what great depth one has traveled. The telegraph poles, the buses, the bullock carts, and the worn-out villagers were beside you, but you were far away, so deep that no thought could follow. Every feeling stayed far away. You were walking, aware of everything that was happening around you, the darkening of the moon by masses of clouds, the warning of the cycle bell, but you were far away. Not you, but great, vast depth. This depth went on more profoundly within itself, past time and the limits of space. It was total, complete freedom, without route and direction. And deep, far from thought, there was bursting energy which was ecstasy, a word that has pleasurable, gratifying significance to thought. But thought could never capture it or travel the spaceless distance to pursue it. Thought is a barren thing and could never follow or communicate with that which is timeless. The thundering bus, with its blinding lights, nearly pushed one off the road into the dancing waters. the essence of control is suppression. The pure seeing puts an end to every form of suppression. Seeing is infinitely more subtle than mere control. Control is comparatively easy. It doesn't need much understanding. Conformity to a pattern, obedience to established authority, fear of not doing the right thing of tradition, the drive for success. These are the very things that bring about suppression of what is, or the sublimation of what is. The pure act of seeing the fact, whatever the fact be, brings its own understanding, and from this, mutation takes place. We'll read a question and answer from a bulletin called Krishnamurti at Los Alamos, 1984, not long before he died. In case someone doesn't know what Los Alamos is, it says here, Los Alamos is a government city of utilitarian structures perched atop a 7,000-foot plateau 45 miles northwest of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Sagebrush, chamisa, and several varieties of pine trees blanket the surrounding area. The view from here extends some 60 or more miles across vast spaces of high desert, traditional Indian lands, to the jagged peaks of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. When Dr. Robert J. Oppenheimer, the great physicist and Sanskrit scholar, discovered this site, it was untouched save for a small private school for boys and several unexcavated ancient Indian pueblos. It was selected to be the center of America's atomic research soon after the United States entered World War II. Today, some 40 years later, it has grown from the small village of its beginnings to a city of more than 20,000 inhabitants. Its focus of activity is now more diffuse than atomic research, but still of a highly secret nature. Krishnamurti was invited there to give a talk and answer questions. And it says here, of the 15 written questions handed to him on March 21st, Krishnamurti answered only the first and the last. The first was, what is meditation and how is it related to creativity? And if you were the director of this laboratory with responsibility for the defense of this country and recognizing the way things are, how would you direct the activities of the laboratory and research? His answer to the first question took up most of the 1 hour and a half, and half of the 1 hour and a half allotted time. His answer to the second question is given below. So here, the question, if you were the director of this laboratory, and Krishnamurti, thank God I'm not. But if I am, would I put this question? Is the question the right question? Questioner. Sir, It's a question trying to find a connection between your theories, your beliefs of mankind, and what we are all trying to do, and the practical, everyday problems that we have. Krishnamurti, yes, sir, everyday problems. Earning a livelihood, sex, having children or not having children, vocation, which is now becoming imitation, everyday problems of quarrels, disagreements, pain, hurts, suffering. You see, our daily existence and our brains are trained from childhood to solve problems. And the speaker is saying that seeking a solution prevents the understanding of the problem. Our brains are trained to solutions. I have a problem with my wife. What is the solution? Divorce, or going to a lawyer, or adjustment, or running away, all that kind of stuff. But the problem is what? My assertions, my wishes, my fulfillment, and hers. Let's understand that. Discuss it. Finish it. If I am seeking a solution, I never go into the question. The causation of the problem can be ended, not through a solution, but through the understanding of the problem itself. Sorry, the question is if I am the director. Sir, the answer is that's the wrong question, because this should have been put right at the beginning of man's history, not now. At the beginning of killing man, one human being killing another human being in the name of religion, in the name of country, in the name of God, in the name of crown and loyalty. My country as opposed to your country, my ideology as opposed to your ideology. I am a devout Marxist, I'm not, in parentheses, or Leninist, and another is a Catholic, and so we are at war with each other. That is the real time to ask this question, not at the end of all this, what should I do? We have brought about this, we have divided the world. You're a Christian, I am a black, you're a white, you're a Caucasian, I am a Chinese, whatever the beastly thing is. We are divided, have fought each other from the beginning of time. The Western civilization has killed more people than any other civilization. It's a fact. I'm not against it or for it. Sir, a group of people like you here in Los Alamos, you have given your time for destruction and also for construction. You're doing a great deal of benefit, and on the other side, you're destroying every human being on earth because you have recognized my country, my responsibilities, my defense. And the Russians are saying exactly the same thing on the other side. And India, which has immense poverty, is saying the same thing, building up arms. So what's the answer to this? If I have a group who says, let's forget all nationalism, all religions, let's as human beings solve this problem, how to live together without destruction. If we gave time to all that as a group of absolutely dedicated people who have gathered together at Los Alamos for one purpose and are concerned with all the things we have been talking about, then perhaps there is something new that can take place. Sir, we have never faced death. Oppenheimer in Sanskrit says, I am become death. You know that very well. And we don't understand death either, which we will not go into right now. But we have become destroyers, and we also benefit human beings at the same time. Right, sir? I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not a propagandist, but the world is like this now. Nobody's thinking about it. Nobody has a global outlook, a global feeling for all humanity. Not my country, for God's sake. If you went around the world as the speaker does, you would cry for the rest of your life. Pacifism is a reaction to militarism, that's all. The speaker is not a pacifist. Instead, let's look at the cause of all this, the beginning of all this. If the causation is there, if we all seek together the causation, then the thing is solved. But each one has different opinions about the causation and sticks to his opinions, his historical directories. So, sir, there it is. Questioner, sir, if I may say so, I think you have convinced us. Krishnamurti, I'm not convincing anything. Questioner, maybe I'm not using the proper word. I think you have seen from the silence of the audience that we seem to have enough energy to understand and appreciate the problem. Krishnamurti, no sir, don't say that. Questioner, what I mean is that when once we really try to understand this and do something in that direction, somehow we seem to lack the necessary energy. With the result, we're still not able to make as much progress as we all like. I would like to hear a few comments from you. What is it that is really holding us back? We can see it, and we can see the house on fire, but still, we're not able to do anything about stopping the fire. Krishnamurti, the house on fire, which we think is out there, is in here. We have to put our house in order first, sir. I was once called by a family whom I've known for some time. Their son came to see me and said, "My father is dying. Will you please come and see him?" And you know, in all families that takes place, the father is dying and they all surround him crying. So I asked the father to chase them out of the room. He made them leave. And they all left, and he locked the door. He said, "I'm dying, disease incurable, and I'm frightened." So I sat with him and held his hand, and he said it was the first time somebody held his hand. And I said, the speaker said to him, "Let's die together." Which means what? He was leaving all his family. He had a lovely house, a very rich man. And I said, "You're leaving all that. And that's what you're afraid of. And also, you're afraid of the unknown. And you are attached. When there's attachment, there's fear, and so on." We talked gently together, and I said, "If there's any kind of attachment, I will die with you. You're free of attachment." So death has an extraordinary meaning in life. To live with death, not separate. Death there and living here, but together. we will end here for today.